Good evening. There are many things that could have been spoken, but with limitation of time, I'll just say one thing. We have discussed quite a lot about how safety is very important. This safety has become all of a sudden important. Why? Mainly because probably the textually explained procedures are not perhaps being followed. Perhaps things that should be given ample time for a particular process to get completed is not happening. Shortcuts are being taken, and therefore perhaps some products somewhere show negative facets of its own. But that does not mean that Ayurvedic science and Rasashastra, the speciality of this science, has ever proved to be unsafe. Unscrupulous people do things which are non-scientific, and for that we cannot question the science itself. Very simply put, just because a fly continuously sits on the nose, we cannot cut our nose. The first and foremost thing is to be checked whether the medicines prepared are being prepared in exactly the way the Ayurvedic texts have permitted or explained. Once that is happening, then and then alone we can definitely check the veracity of whether it is toxic or not. I am not going to dwell on the same topic all over again, but I will like to put before you a very succinctly but very importantly thought point, and that is, when we prepare anything today, are we counter checking as to whether we have done exactly what the seers expected? Are we 100% sticking to what they expected can be checked, and therefore special importance has to be given to the scaling up that has actually taken place. Earlier time, everybody knows the textual references talk about 10 gram mercury being triturated. Naturally, the physician himself would do it, and he or she would do it to the best of their ability, also checking the end points. And that is where perhaps today a question mark is still open. And that is the reason why I have selected the topic challenges in scaling up production. Today we cannot be starting with 10 grams of mercury to prepare something and then offer to the public, because even the Ayurvedic fraternity will not be having that much time to do it all on its own, and therefore the pharmaceutical branch has got developed. In such a situation, what needs to be always taken into account are the basic points. The Ayurvedic texts have never talked only of rasa things. They have talked about vanaspati dravya, they have talked about pranij dravya, and they have talked about khanija dravya. That too, why? Because as compared to the herbals, the pranija would be able to give more benefits and in less time. And when it comes to khanija dravya, it is very clearly explained and repeated today many times. Alpa matropayogitvat aruchehe prasangataha kshipram arogyadayitvat oshadibhyo adhiko rasaha. Now all of this is fine, but when it comes to manufacturing, we have to realize two things very importantly. It is not only Rasashastra that is important, Vaishesha Kalpana is also equally important. For example, if Tribhuvan Kirti has to be prepared and has to act in its own way, then even the Bhavana Kram that is given also has its own relevance. Because whatever is going to be given first as the Bhavana Dravya that is used will get liberated in the body last. And the last Dravya, that is Dhatura Patra Swaras, will get acting in the body first, which is important for the Samprapti Bhanga of Jwara. And therefore, if it is the Svedala Karya that is expected of Dhatura Patra Swaras, then that is what has to be seen. And therefore we say, after Tribhuvan Kirti, has the patient started sweating? Okay, it is working. It's as simple as that, that everything that is said has to be done in the same manner, and then only we get the results expected. And therefore, Bhaishajya Kalpana and Rasashastra, which deals mainly with the Khanija Dravya, have to be taught at a time, all the time. Even Arogya Vardhini, like substance which has so many other ingredients, has a Bhavana Dravya, which can be a separate topic of discussion, but very importantly, that also has to be taken into account. Rasa Shastra is not just para the preparation, it is also preparation of different stages, different types, from Sukshma, Sukshmatara, Sukshmatama and Ati Sukshmatama. That's the way the Rasayan have been explained. Khalvi Rasayan is something that will be Sukshma, but as compared to that, Kupi Pakwa will be much more Sukshma. As compared to that, Parpati will be, and then Pottali is the one which will get maximum heat treatment, that too through the madhyam or medium of Gandhaka, Dravita Gandhak, and therefore the result that is expected of Pottali Rasayan will be instantaneous. And then there is the fifth class, that is Bhasma. I am not going to talk about the Niruthikaran, etc., but when we talk about safety and efficacy of anything, it has to be correlated with first the methodology, the end points that have been obtained and checked, and then only we should go to check the efficacy, toxicity or non-toxicity. If the bhasmas are prepared, manufactured perfectly, then and then alone they will be exactly what they are expected to be. I am not going to talk about samskaro, gunantara, dhanam uchyate, all of us know. But each of the te gunaha, toyagni sannikarsha, why is it that has been said? Toya, just dhavan also is extremely important. So what I am trying to tell you is, when we talk about the quality of, or rather the safety or unsafety of the product, all of these points are of great importance. Without this, the product cannot be considered to be what is expected. Shodhan, a simple, so-called simple procedure, but it is not just washing. All of us know, Uddishtai Aushadhi Sardam Kriyate Peshanadikam Mala Vichitta Yeto. Now here, Mala is what? Mala is not just Malani Karnat Malaha. Mala is those properties of the substances which have to be extradicated, which have to be thrown out. And that is what is Shodhan is all about. Now when we talk about a particular sanskar, is that sanskar done in the same way that is expected? Has the end point of sanskar been checked is something very, very important. Sanskar doesn't mean only something to be done. It has to be done to a particular point, that the expected changes that have to come about can come about. And therefore, without going into too much of details, I'll go to a simple point like shodhana. Shodhan of loha patra, even if that is to be done, then the heating process, the adequate quantity, mixing, etc., etc., has to be done in the same manner, and then you will get what is expected. But when it goes to scaling up, what exactly does happen? Here we are trying to show you a clip where it is not 5 grams of sulfur that is being purified, so to say. Shodhan is by being done. You can see how much of gandhak is to be used, but that also needs to be done exactly the way it was expected. So you saw for earlier the smearing of the entire machinery that is being used there. It's just a complete stainless steel pot. And you saw the ghee being poured inside, and then this dravita gandhak is something that you can see when it is heated appropriately. This dravita gandhak should not be burning. It should not get burnt at the same time. You cannot use it like that, because if there are any impurities that cannot get dissolved, have to be filtered. This filtration, when done, will be the gandhak that is ready, shodhit gandhak that is ready for trituration. You can see how exactly this dravita gandhak is collected in dugdha, godugdha, as expected. After that, again it needs to be washed, because what is known in Sanskrit as oshata, that is a particular type of smell, will otherwise remain, and everybody will feel that there is something wrong. So after washing, Kajali is to be prepared. But when it comes to preparation of Kajali, how exactly should it be done? This is Gandhak Shodhan, what it delivers. This is Ashodhit and the Shodhit Gandhak side by side. When we see this, we realize the change that has come about, and then we have to make it into Kajali. Kajali in earlier times was done in this manner. But how many grams can we make it at a time? And therefore, when we think of scaling up, it cannot be by any other means but keeping the same exacting principles the way it was expected. And therefore, you can see at industrial level how it is done in the same manner without hand but the machine. Here you see the shodhit, I am not saying pure, shodhit mercury being put in that pot, and then again shodhit gandhak being put in the same pot, and then you will see the actual process of Kajali Karan. Here you can see how it is floating, gandhak is floating on top of mercury. When this has to be mixed, complete stainless steel balls of huge weight are put inside. You can see those balls are of 2 different dimensions, so that it is not just at one particular revolution that it rotates, and you will see exactly how the change comes about. You can see parad clearly separate here. It is the beginning. Over a period of time, you will see this quantum of parad automatically getting mixed with parad, and look at the shade of that entire mixture. This is the end point almost, where you can see that the mercury and gandhak have completely merged into each other. Kajali is prepared and the ball, steel ball, is rotating on its own, separate from the mixture. This type of Kajali, when prepared, cannot be just taken because it appeared to be perfect. And that's the reason why at this stage, Ayurvedic tests such as Rekha Purnatva, Unamatva, all of them, and Nischandratva have to be done. You can see Rekha Purnatva very clearly here. However simple it may appear, but if this is not properly done Kajali, naturally the tiny particles would shine. Here you can see how for each batch this testing needs to be done. This may be considered primitive type according to many, but this is the method that Ayurveda has talked about. After this, you can also see the floating Kajali, and on top of that Unam Pariksha, a rice grain also floating as mentioned by the text. If all of this is done, the chances of this Kajali not being perfectly done is not remote, it is 0%. Again, even after that, all of this has to be methodically followed for each batch of Kajali to see, starting from description to what all can be found and are found in the Kajali that is there. Even up to the level of ppm. It's not that we can just close our eyes because Kajali is now floating on top of water. All of this has to be done. You can see how exactly the study can and has to be done to understand what all are the ingredients in it. These, I won't take too much of time because I know, or many of you might have to go to the dispensary also, watching, looking at the watch. So this is the crystal structure that can also be studied. You can see here how exactly the readings can be checked every time, and this is something that cannot be done for each and every batch because this is scanning electron microscopy, but one of a particular number of batches are checked in this fashion to see that Samagandhak Kajali, is it completely perfect. These are different magnifications at which the photographs have been taken. This type of Kajali, when used in any of the preparation, whether it is Khalvi, as in case of say Arogya Vardhini, somebody had discussed about some ingredients in the compound being unsafe. Very true. In case of Tamra, it is very clearly said that if Tamra Bhasma is not perfectly done, it is Vishavat. Everyone knows it, and that's the reason why the checking need not be done only on Dadhi Pariksha. It can also be done and has to be done in this manner also to see that absolute safety is guaranteed. This is Dadhi Pariksha, as I said. You can see if improperly prepared Tamra Bhasma, which was actually, I'm not going to say whose, but sourced from the market, we could see the blue tinge around, and you can look at the other one which doesn't show any tinge. This is Kutki. Arogya Vardhani, to give result, has to be studied thoroughly to this extent. Then and then alone we will find the expected result of Arogya Vardhani. Arogya Vardhani, Katuki or Kutki, as you know, is not one which is very easily available or cheap. Just 1 minute and observe this Shilajit. Shilajit is supposed to be good if it becomes Lingakruti. It is kept in a it is being heated, it is kept in a crucible and it is being heated, and one can see how it becomes Lingakruti as expected. This type of Shilajit is one that can give results, and therefore whether it is a so-called simple combination or a complex combination, whatever it is, has to be studied to the best of our ability. Then and then alone you can see how exactly it has become Lingakruti by now. This is Google. I have taken Arogyavardhini as a example, and therefore I am showing all the ingredients of that particular drug. Shodhit Google again can be very clearly understood as to how it should be. This is batch to batch consistency of Arogyavardhini. It should not be that one batch gives result, the other one doesn't. And how can we find it out? We can find out at least by this method, which is complete analysis of what is present in it and in how much quantity. I thank you for giving me the time for presentation. Perhaps sometime later we will talk little